The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Hey, listen up, Sean McAdoo. What's your name? Sean McAdoo? You're going down.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It might be raining in Vancouver. You might have oddsmakers and pundits raining on the Vancouver Canucks, but we're still bringing the heat here on Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks, also a Canucks writer for Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into today's episode, we got to thank you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks, because it is your Canucks every damn day. Part of that Locked On Podcast Network. They're doing the most for sports fans across the world. And for our show, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go subscribe and like on YouTube, and on the podcast side, go follow us and leave a 5-star review, because we're not here without you first and foremost, but we're also not here without the sponsors. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Canucks season is about to get started, but according to the odds makers, according to some pundits, maybe the Canucks shouldn't even get started at all in their season, because there's not a lot of love for the Canucks as Stanley Cup contenders. I will say there's some other that believe in the Canucks, but when you look at the odds makers, when you look at some of the national writers and what they're saying about the Vancouver Canucks, there is not a lot of belief in this Canucks team to take the next step next season. Is that right? Are they truly not in contender category? Let's get into that. We'll also look at potentially some waiver wire targets and things that we want to see in the preseason finale. All that and more coming up. But before we get to all that, let me shout out my co-host, recording from a box with some windows, Kyle Bhawan. How you doing, brother?
Recording from home because I got ish to do before I head into the studio. Speaking of which, we got to do this, man. We gotta, what's the word I'm looking for? Avenge? Defend, okay? We got to defend our city, our team, and fight back from a guy named Sean McAdoo, a.k.a. Down Goes Brown, a.k.a. a guy who wrote an actually really good book on the history of the NHL. Somebody should read it who's listening to this. Hey, speaking of books, man, Quinn Hughes, 30 books in 1 year. That's why he won the Norris. And Trevor, I know you saw that Quinn Hughes quote and you thought of me right away. You know that's the case, right?
Oh, 100%. Bro. Yeah, exactly what I thought of. I mean, you were the guy talking about how Elias Pettersson needs to read more books. And, hey, maybe that's the case. But now we know that Quinn Hughes read 30 books last year. And man, oh man, am I feeling stupid after seeing that. But shout out to that's your captain, the Vancouver Canucks right there. And that's why your Vancouver Canucks will remain a contender, among other reasons, here in 2024-25.
Hey, speaking of reading books, apparently Sean McAdoo has completely read the book on the Vancouver Canucks, and he's looking at the Thatcher Demko situation, and also the fact that the Canucks are going to be icing 2 healthy scratches in their top 6 as reasons why the Canucks are going to be headed downhill. Again, the odds makers, Tim W in the comments, he told me to get a life yesterday, but apparently he also understands that the odd makers don't play any games. And right now, apparently, the Canucks are the 47th ranked team to win the Stanley Cup this year. Who wrote this? Sean McAdoo? Is Sean McAdoo a professional gambler? What's going on here?
So let's touch on. We're picking on Down Goes Brown today. Great writer at The Athletic. I love some of his ideas, but his most recent column, put 8 teams into 4 different categories. There was the bottom feeder division, the middle of the pack division, the contenders division, and the your guess is as good as mine division. And 8 teams made the contenders division. None of those teams were the Vancouver Canucks, who ended up in the your guess is as good as mine division.
Whoa!
And you know what? You're obviously, when you're writing, you got to take some shots, right? But this one was interesting. And really the whole idea of this was that regression predictions are inevitable. And he says, without Demko out, this could be headed downhill. He does end by saying that, didn't we all get tired of being wrong with the doom and gloom calls about the Canucks next year? So he does end it with kind of an open-ended question. But, I think Sean McAdoo, like his idea there about regression and what are the Canucks going to be about Demko, is something that's shared by the odds makers for the most part. And, we talked a bit about power rankings as well. you look at consolidated power rankings, the Canucks are somewhere from 8th to 12th. If you look at the Stanley Cup odds rankings, man, oh man, I mean, our friends over at FanDuel, we shout them out all the time. They still have the Canucks as having the tied for the 13th best odds of winning the Stanley Cup. I think if you go alphabetically, they're at 14th overall in terms of the best odds winning the Stanley Cup. And that is a crazy thing to me for a team who, again, got a lot deeper offensively last season, who was one of the best teams in the NHL last season, was the 5th last team remaining in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, Kyle, who's right here? Are the odds makers right? Should people be down in the Canucks? Because if you want to look at it in a nutshell, forwards got better, defense probably got worse, and goaltending got worse. So are the odds makers right, or are the Canucks being disrespected by both odds makers and pundits here?
No, it's I think it's fair criticism for a team that's been good for like 25 to 30 seconds. You know what I'm saying? I also think it's fair criticism for a team that probably doesn't have these pundits and odds makers paying attention to the energy and the quotes coming from that organization, because if you're glued in, tapped in, you understand that they're taking this season really, really serious. I feel as if they've kind of already forgotten about last season. There's something fresh still about this roster that, outside of Demko not being there, and again, having Forbert and Desharnais play a ton of games and play a ton of time in their defensive acumen, game in and game out, this roster's still pretty stacked. And they have a Norris Trophy winner and 2 number 1 centers. And they have a lot of depth around those guys. They have 1 elite winger too in Brock Besser. And oh yeah, did I talk about the energy being different? The quotes, the power, Rick Tocchet and company? The culture's different here. So we're around it and we get gassed up off of it. We get high off of it. And we believe that they can achieve. But from the outside, Jeremy McAdoo, what's his name? Sean McAdoo. But again, read his book. These guys aren't paying attention to that. What they're looking at is the fact that, again, Demko may be out till 2029. Nobody knows. He has an injury that is an injury that takes 3 to 16 weeks to heal from, that occurred in a muscle that nobody even knew the human beings across the globe had. Straight up, it's confusion. And again, not to poo-poo too much on Forbert and Desharnais, but it is a downgrade from Ian Cole and Nikita Zadorov. Actually, that's one of the biggest downgrades when you're talking about your depth defensemen across the league. It's actually the truth. So again, without the, I think I'm onto something. Without the, the energy that we're feeling from Alvin and Tocchet on the daily, based on press conferences, media availabilities, based on again the conversations we're having with Quinn Hughes through the media. If you're not absorbed in that, there's reason to be concerned about the Canucks doing what they did again last year.
Yeah, there's reasons for concern, but to be honest, and I think maybe I have a wider NHL lens than some. You look at the other contenders too, and most of them have issues, right? I mean, look at the Edmonton Oilers, the Stanley Cup favorite heading into this season. Their defense is pretty much in the same position as the Canucks, where they got an amazing top pairing and a lot of question marks, and they got question marks in net as well. I mean, I'm looking at FanDuel right now, and you know what the team with the 3rd best cup odds on FanDuel is? It's the freaking New Jersey Devils, who missed the playoffs last season, right? So it's crazy to me that a team in the Vancouver Canucks, who was one of the best teams in the NHL last season, is considered a middle-of-the-pack team in cup rankings, and a team like the New Jersey Devils, who were a one-hit wonder, then floundered last year, have the 3rd best cup odds. That's crazy. Now, to put out into a wider lens, I did pull cup odds from 5 other sites, but right now the Canucks are really ranking from somewhere between, FanDuel has them on the low end at tied for 13th, but the highest they are on, I'm looking at 6 sites in total here, is the 7th best cup odds, but most odds makers have them in that 10-11 range. Mm-hmm. And again, to me, you got a team who got better up front in the offseason. You could argue the cup window just opened up and they're on this upward trajectory, but man, oh man, the odds makers and Sean McAdoo, along with some other pundits who make the power rankings, are basically saying that pump the brakes, Canucks fans, because no one's really believing yet, except for you guys.
And that's okay, man. I'm down to just keep that love for our brothers and sisters here on the West Coast, the best coast, okay? Let us be the ones to only use that West Coast Canadian bias. It's okay. Us against the world. I like it. I truly do. And Trevor, we talked about this guy yesterday. Go check out the episode. It was a fun episode when we compared Daniel Sprong to Andrei Kuzmenko. And no, I'm not going to use Daniel Sprong as leverage to convince the NHL that the Canucks are going to win the Stanley Cup. But we spent a lot of time talking about Elias Pettersson on that episode. And again, the NHL has not seen this version of the Vancouver Canucks where they have a Norris Trophy winner and two elite number one centers going at it, shift in and shift out. And I know maybe for like the first 30 games, it felt like that, right, last year. But on that note, there is a part of me that truly does believe that even in the first half of that season with Elias Pettersson last year, we weren't seeing the best from him. There was something off about him. There's a gear to that guy. And if he gets that gear back, again, we're about to witness something brand new and something hopefully special. It's hard to look across the league and find organizations that have, again, two of the top 10 centers in the league, a Norris Trophy winner. And, if Demko does come back or Shelovs is Calder-worthy, really good goaltending. And if you ask me, bro, if you have all of that and Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote and some serious organizational depth, whether it be within or, I don't know, the management group, the Canucks have to be taken serious.
I'm glad you brought up Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote, because to me, that's a big thing for the Vancouver Canucks. Again, the forwards got better in the offseason. I think, we believe in Shelovs and Lankinen, but the defense is the big question mark. But if you believe in Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote to get the most out of this defense and have them playing somewhat to the level that they were at last year, it's going to make the defense look better. It's going to make the goaltending look better. And then overall, it's going to raise the floor of this team. And, shout out to Stephen Wong in the comments saying that, the Canucks predict to get 105 points with a 95% chance of making the playoffs. Look, I'm not saying that all pundits are against the Vancouver Canucks, but definitely, again, go check out any power rankings. For the most part, the ones I checked out had the Canucks somewhere from 8th to 12th, and their cup odds are around the same. But hey, for the first time in a long time, the fancy stat boys are actually liking the Vancouver Canucks, and I'm a fan of that, baby.
Hey,
the other things I'm a fan of.
Sorry to cut you off, but again, like from the outside looking into, not everyone's paying close attention to the Vancouver Canucks. I assume a lot of these pundits only watched, the Nashville series and the Edmonton series. Okay, everyone watched the Edmonton series. Okay, and you look at that series and your takeaways are, oh yeah, the Canucks took the Oilers to 7 games, but they got incredible goaltending at points, and the Oilers dominated in game 6 and 7, blah, blah, blah. And oh yeah, they also lost Elias Lindholm. And now Lindholm's the number one center in Boston. And you have to understand that pundits who are against the Canucks are using that as ammo. And honestly speaking, rightfully so. It is what it is. Because there's not a situation in the league where somebody's number 3 center last year ended up being the Boston Bruins number 1 center going into this year.
Yeah, it's crazy times across the NHL. And hey, the Boston Bruins, they got something to worry about too. Jonas Korpisalo, their future starter, did not look good in the preseason tune-up last night, but that don't matter because that ain't involving your Vancouver Canucks. Okay, lots to get into as we wrap up the show here. We want to touch on some waiver wire targets and things we want to see in the preseason finale, maybe a bit more about Quinn Hughes, who becomes a TV star starting tonight on Amazon Prime. All that and more coming up next after we shout out our friends over at FanDuel. All right, you know the deal, baby, all right? It's NFL season, it's NHL season, and you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in the bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. We brought up the cup odds, okay? The New Jersey Devils, the third best cup odds in the NHL, despite missing the playoffs last season, plus 1,100 to win the Stanley Cup. The Vancouver Canucks way down at tied for 13th, aka 14th, with plus 2,300 odds of winning the Stanley Cup. So our friends at FanDuel, you could say, do they know that much about hockey? Debatable, but they're trying to make you some money, okay? So make sure that if you want to place some bets on the NHL, you go to FanDuel.com.
Man, oh man. People, we back doing this, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks. My name is Kyle Bhawan. That right there is Trevor Beggs. If you're with us on the live streaming of this broadcast, aka of this podcast, aka of this vodcast, do us a favor and hit the like button right now, okay? Each like goes a long way in making sure Trevor and Kyle can survive erectile dysfunction, because last time I checked, the rates are going up, man. $4 a pill. $6 a pill. Back in my day, 87 cents a pill. Remember those Cialis commercials back in the day? You're 10 years old. Good morning. Good morning. It's great to stay up late. Good morning. Good morning to you. Bro, I can't believe we're at that point where we're going to be doing that, because we're happy. We're hard. Again, speaking of hard, okay, look at this comment from Kurt Richardson, okay? Regression is not in Talks dictionary, okay? And I don't see Quinn Hughes as a type of leader to let things slip. We're going to the finals, baby. Again, like I said, the pundits, the haters, FanDuel, they're not paying attention to the energy that is oozing from the two biggest leaders on this team. You know what I'm saying? And how about the energy from JT Miller? I want to touch on this maybe on a separate episode, maybe later today when I'm back in the studio, okay? JT Miller sat with who? Ian McIntyre of Sportsnet. Ian McIntyre, the coolest guy in hockey media right now over here on the West Coast, the best coast. Anyway, Dom, the Dom guy from The Athletic, right, who had Quinn Hughes as his 47th ranked defenseman last year, is saying that JT is what? Can we confirm this? The 17th best center in hockey and didn't even crack the top 50? Unreal. Brutal take for a guy who's been consistent for the last 3 or 4 years. Yes, JT Miller has been consistent offensively for that long. And apparently, he's looking forward to showcasing his two-way ability to the NHL on a different scale, so he can show the doubters and also his fans that he has a different level to his ceilings. Okay, the ceiling. I'm sorry. He talked about how there may be a case this year where he puts up less points, but he's a way better player, and that screams leadership. It truly does.
It truly does. And yeah, it's interesting because, Dom from The Athletic has definitely had some cold takes about the Canucks in recent years, the JT Miller one, the Quinn Hughes one. But as James Moore mentions in the comments here, The Athletic has given the Canucks the 4th best odds to win the Cup this year, true contenders in the model's eye. And I'm glad James brought that up because, look, when I say that odds makers and pundits are doubting the Canucks, that doesn't mean everyone's doubting the Canucks. And again, interesting to see the fancy stat boys, the models, actually giving the Canucks a pretty damn good chance to win it all this year. That being said, for the most part, The Athletic is an anomaly. No one else is giving the Canucks the 4th best Cup odds. No odds makers giving the Canucks the 4th best Cup odds. No one in Power Ranks is giving the Canucks the 4th best Cup odds. For the most part, people see the Canucks as maybe a fringe contender to middle of the pack. That's how most people see the Canucks here outside of Vancouver. And
like I said, that's actually fair. We don't know when we're going to have our number one goalie back. We have a rookie goal. When I say it's fair from coming from the outside. Again, people who are not absorbing the everyday material coming out of Vancouver. But again, this team doesn't know when it's having its number one goaltender. Now they have Kevin Lankinen, Archer Shelovs, and again, 2 of their defensemen who are going to be dressing daily for the Canucks were healthy scratches at times for the Oilers and the Boston Bruins. It's like, bro, that's real stuff. We lost Nikita Zadorov and Ian Cole and replaced it with that. And it's going to take time for the Canucks to find replacements if need be. Because as somebody alluded to in the comments, it was Infamous, okay? Talking about how, Zadorov was a healthy scratch before. And look what happened with Myers and Rick Tocchet and company were able to, make these guys progress. But if that doesn't happen, the Canucks will have to go the trade route. And I think in the eyes of the pundit, until they replace those holes, this team cannot be taken seriously because it is what it is, man. It is quite the drop-off. Now, can we, which I don't think is likely, can we replace any of these guys via the waiver wire? Talk to me, okay? Anyone strike a chord with you, Trevor Beggs?
Yeah, so when I'm looking at waiver wire targets, for the most part, I'm looking at defensemen, right? Because you look at the Canucks right now, they got a couple injuries up front, but I would be hard pressed to think that they're going to claim someone off of the waiver wire. I think they like what they have in Baines. They like what they have in Atu Ratu. One guy that did catch my attention as a guy who could be claimed on the waiver wire is a former Pittsburgh Penguins draft pick, and it's Sam Poulin, drafted 21st overall back in 2019. The dude is, battled some injuries, battled some inconsistency, but had, a bit of a breakout season in the AHL last season and got into 3 NHL games as well. He's a 6'1", 210-pound winger. That's someone who maybe fits more of a fourth line profile than a guy like R.C. Baines, potentially. Plus, R.C. Baines isn't waiver eligible. So among forwards, that's one name that caught my attention. Yesterday on the waiver wire, there was a couple of right shot defensemen that went down. So it was Cale Fleury from Seattle and Nick Blankenburg with the Nashville Predators. Now, I had my ball hockey captain, shout out to Aaron Gray, the Mary Surrey, asking me should the Canucks claim Cale Fleury, and I said no. Mainly because, is he any better than Noah Juleson? And it's going into the weeds a bit, but Cale Fleury was really good in the AHL playoffs last season. But for the most part, I think he has like a golden assist in 63 NHL games, and he's not as physical as Noah Juleson. I think in that scenario, you keep a guy like Noah Juleson. Nick Blankenburg is a guy that really intrigues me, but I don't think the Canucks will claim him because he's undersized. But for those who don't know Nick Blankenburg, the dude plays like he's Nikita Zadorov size, but he's about 5'9", 180. But the guy lays some thunderous hits. I mean, you don't often see a guy that small who hits that big. But Nick Blankenburg plays with his heart on his sleeve. Like, he would be a fan favorite in Vancouver. And I'm kind of curious today. We'll find out if he gets claimed on the waiver wire or not. But those are some names that have my attention right now. I'll bring up one more name as well. Just looking at some national writers and what they're saying about guys who could fall through the waiver wire. A guy that has my attention is Connor Timmins in Toronto. Now, the Leafs, obviously, they bolstered their blue line of free agency, not just with Tanev and OEL, but adding guys like Yanni Hakanpää as well. That pushes a young guy, a young right shot defenseman like Connor Timmins down the depth chart. Connor Timmins has some size. He's 6'2", 210, right shot defenseman. Has some offensive pop to his game. I mean, in 2022-23, had 14 points in 25 games. So again, he's got more puck movement ability than most of the guys in Vancouver's bottom 4. So he's a guy I keep my eye on as well.
Wow, buddy did the research, huh? Connor Timbits? Toronto Maple Leafs right-handed defenseman. Yeah, none of those names honestly strike a chord with me. Real talk.
We're talking about waiver wire guys at the end of the day.
Exactly, and unfortunately, it cements the fact that we're gonna have to walk into the season with those two, Forbort and Darnay, playing together as a pairing as your 5 and 6 D-man, and bro. I don't know, man. You want to slap me in the face? You want to RKO me? You want to Stone Cold Stunner me right now? Am I hating too much? But does that just reek of like, holy, this is going to be I was going to swear there, but this is going to be effed up for real. Having those guys play about 14, 15, 17 minutes a game, it's not going to be fun to watch.
And again, that's why you're saying none of these names stick out to you. But honestly, I know Nick Blankenburg's undersized, but he kills penalties. He throws his body around. I mean, health is a bit of a concern because he plays so physical as such a small guy. But he's a guy who, again, I think would be a fan favorite in Vancouver and brings something a little bit different to the bottom end. He hits more than Desharnais and Forbort on a per 60 basis. And Connor Timmins, if you like the size and you like the puck movement ability, is he not a guy that you could potentially develop into a bottom pairing guy who kills some penalties and, can actually move the puck as opposed to some of the guys in Vancouver's bottom 6? I'm not saying that they're going to, save the Vancouver Canucks from middle of the pack status, but I'm just saying they could be an upgrade on the Vancouver Canucks defense here.
Bro, if Adam Foote and Rick Tocchet, aka Sergei Gonchar and Adam Foote, can transform Darnay and Forbort into competent players and have them progress during the season and get to a point where they're like 77 overall, 76 overall to like 81, 80, bro, these two, again, I know it sounds crazy, but Adam Foote could be in contention for Coach of the Year. Is that award to hand it to the head coach of the year or coach of the year? Straight up. I'm not even tripping, bro. As somebody alluded to too, like Foote maybe played a huge role in Zadorov taking his game to the next level as the season progressed. He did that with Myers too. He did that with Juleson. That seemed like mission impossible. And maybe, again, I'm hating way too much again on our 5-6 defensemen when, in hindsight, again, Foote's the leader there. And you can't doubt guys like that, straight up. And you can't doubt Rick Tocchet too, who Quinn Hughes, defenseman, said is his favorite coach of all time. And he also touched on this, and bro, I knew this too because I got my sources, okay? For real. And my sources is my intuition. I said that there's no bigger hockey nerd in the NHL than Rick Tocchet. And what did Quinn Hughes say? He said he hasn't met anyone in his life who loves hockey more than Rick Tocchet. Boom, bam. Kyle Bhawan, Quinn Hughes, same mother effer, okay?
There we go. And hey, you hear in Rick Tocchet's press conferences too, man. The guy just loves talking puck, much like we do here on Locked On Canucks, and much like we'll keep doing on the other side here on Locked On Canucks.
People, we back doing this, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks, Kyle Bhawan, Trevor Beggs, a one love to the Don't Doze Art Lab, the place that we're not at today, but it is the place that gives us that West Coast bias on the daily and allows us to produce this show consistently for you and you and you and you and you and you. Hit the like button for them because that West Coast bias is real, and it's the real deal here again. I'm Locked On Canucks, man. Oh man, it's the morning all over the place, slipping and falling, doing my thing. It's Friday. My neck hurts sitting down in this position. But I'm happy, man. I'm happy that the NHL starts today. The regular season starts today. And I'm even happier that I get to read these comments, okay? Because the more and more I read these comments, the more and more I understand that we are all Locked On Canucks, okay? Look at this comment from Anthemous. And again, Trevor, I'm surprised you haven't done it yet. I'm surprised you haven't shut me up or kicked me out of this conversation. The amount of ish I'm talking about Forbert and Darnay, it's to the point that if those two ever listened to this ish and saw me down the street, bro, they're going to rip me apart. Straight up. Rip me apart and then beat me over my head with my leg. Anyways, Anthemous is saying he's not judging anyone until he sees them play games, regular season games in a Canucks jersey. And I got to do the same. So, you know what? I'm not talking ish anymore about VD and Forbert. I'm not doing it. I'm supporting them. One love to them. They're going to progress. They're going to be really good at some point during the season. And this 2-year deal that we signed Vincent Darnay to is going to be the steal of the NHL, and he's going to be a much better player than Darnell Nurse.
Yeah, there we go, buddy. And, you know, you got to give yourself some grace, too. I mean, we record a Canucks podcast 5 days a week, Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day. You got to have some takes, man. You got to watch some tape on these guys, and you got to have some takes. Can't just, I think for most fans, yeah, let's sit back and chillax and wait till we see them in Canucks jerseys. But for me, I want to watch these guys. I want to see their strengths. I want to see their weaknesses, and then make a judgment. And let's see if they can change once they enter Canuck colors. Because again, we saw that with a few different players last season. Noah Jules and Tyler Myers look like completely different players from the beginning of the season to even the midway point of the season.
No, 100%. And it's interesting how I forgot about that, and I remember it at the same time every now and then. But the fact that I'm just Kyle Bhawan, this Findu talking ish about the Canucks. It's ironic how I don't allow myself to have more faith in the teachings from some of the best coaches in hockey. And this, I'll put it this way, okay? If Forbert and Darnay are able to progress because they're under Foote and Gonchar's tutelage, and just under Foote's everyday tutelage, I would not be surprised if Adam Foote got a head coaching job next season.
Yeah, that would be a big blow to the Vancouver Canucks. Hopefully Adam Foote can help bring a Stanley Cup to Vancouver before we get to that. Now, Kyle, we do got one preseason game left tonight. A couple guys on the bubble here. What is on your mind most as we enter the final preseason game tonight against the Edmonton Oilers?
Speaking of which, Daniel Patterson chirping me saying that the regular season doesn't start today. I'm talking about the NHL, okay? There's other things happening other than the Canucks, okay? I'm pretty sure, as Trevor alluded to, real hockey starts today across the pond, okay? The regular season starts today, and it lands on the same day that the Canucks play their final preseason game, because that's how life works sometimes, okay? It's confusing. I'm looking forward to JT Miller playing tonight and only trying hard on the power play. That's what I'm looking forward to, because I feel as if I'm not even joking. This guy does not give a beep about playoff games, and I'm sure he cares about the fans and the fans that are going to be in the building at Rogers Arena that are paying to watch him play and all that jazz. But I feel as if he's only going to try 110% during the power play in a preseason game.
Yeah, I think the return of JT Miller is certainly a storyline tonight. I think a couple of things on my mind are, the bubble guys, 100%. Like, is Baines going to get into the lineup and get one last chance to prove that he earns a roster spot? Is Ratu going to be on the line with Höglander and Garland? Can that line continue to be the Canucks' best line? All right.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, we talked about Forbort and Desharnais. I believe this would be the first game that they would play together if the line stayed the way that they've stayed all week. So I'm curious to see how those guys look in their final tune-up game before the regular season starts.
Yeah, and there's been that argument about the Canucks not being adamant on playing most of their stars game in and game out to ensure that this new batch of players alongside the core, because there are a lot of new players in the Canucks. Like this full-time roster that we're talking about, I feel as if there's like 6 or 7 new guys, no joke. And their lack of ambition to ice fuller lineups may hinder their ability to come out of the gate firing because of the lack of chemistry that these guys may have, right? And now you just took all this preseason time off as well. But I don't know, man. It's something that I think fans overthink sometimes. And I know practices are different than preseason games, but how much so? And I'm being serious about that statement. Straight up. Now, on your little spiel about the things that you want to see, again, at the top of the list for me, it's the power play. Real talk, I want to see the power play do its thing. Like, I want them to score a couple goals, no joke. And yeah, this rat line that you're talking about, Atu Ratu, Connor Garland, Niels Höglander, a bit of a part-time third line until Joshua comes back. It's going to be exciting. And we can talk about the whole Atu Ratu thing, but I'm more curious to see Niels Höglander and Connor Garland go at it against the other team, shift in and shift out.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll say another low-key thing I'm curious to see is I believe that Ratu would probably get second power play unit time as well. Because, Hughes Theater's out of the lineup. Obviously, you have Miller and Pettersson on PP1. So could it be like Ratu, Höglander, Garland, Sprong, Hronek on the second power play unit? Again, maybe I'm nerding out a bit too much, but that's kind of something I'm interested to see in the final.
You are nerding out too much.
Game.
Like, what are you talking about, Trevor?
Trevor,
man, Trevor, come on, bro. You got a family, bro. You got a family, okay? You better not be telling your kids to shut up when the second power play unit is on the ice. Just relax, all right? It's a preseason game. Unbelievable, Trevor. That's what you're looking for.
Two of the best teams last season had double-digit goals from their second power play unit. We'll see if the Canucks can do the same. They got the talent to do so. All right. Let's get to one more comment before we get out of here. Stefan Johansson, shout out to Stefan. Shout out to Sweden. He says, I can't wrap my head around the decision to let Lekkerimäki go. But let's just trust the coach. I'm sure he will be back in the lineup and make a huge impact. And then Matt Folger following up, Folger's Coffee. Stefan, we want Lekkerimäki ready for the playoffs on opening day. Look, Rick Tocchet said as much this week. He said he was really impressed with Lekkerimäki's play, that, it would be good for him to get that top minutes in the AHL. And he said he could be back in a month. He could be back in a year. It's who knows. It's on Lekkerimäki now to go have a damn good run in the AHL and force his way into the lineup. He played good in the preseason, but he was arguably outplayed by Höglander and Sprong, two guys who are ahead of him for that right wing spot on the Pettersson line. So that's all good, man. Lekkerimäki will be back to help your Canucks win the Stanley Cup in 2025. Let's go, baby.
Man, oh man, dude. I like it, man. That's how we got to end the episode. You know what? It's the last day of the preseason. We finally arrived. Some people, I think some petty people and people that I love for real, because they truly do have the West Coast bias. They're looking at tonight's game, considering that it is the last preseason game, and there's a good chance that like both teams ice pretty legit lineups, that this is kind of like game 8 against the Oilers, that type of energy. And so be it, man. If that's how you want to feel, I'm not going to feel that way. I'm waiting until November. I'm waiting until October ends, to be honest, to get back at the Oilers. But if tonight's a pay-per-view event for you, enjoy it. Straight up, do your thing. Trevor, can I actually ask you one more question before you leave? Again, my name's Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs. Hit the like button. One love to you and you and you and you. A like goes a long way. Subscribe to the channel. Boom, bam, blah, blah, blah. But talk about Connor McDavid, okay? Talk about, the fact that everyone's seen his rant in the dressing room after another loss to Florida in the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm really curious to see if he had a rant after like a Game 5 loss against the Canucks in round 2, straight up. We might see that. Talk about him a bit, but more notably, talk about the fact that I feel as if he's played like 56 preseason games this preseason. No, straight up.
Yeah, he's definitely played in a few of them. Look, I really want to come out with an anti-Oilers take, like, oh, Connor McDavid, what a whiner, what a baby. To be honest, man, I think when you're as intense of an athlete as Connor McDavid, when you're as good as he is, I think I kind of like the fact that he tried to juice the boys up and fire them up after game 2 loss, when like your season is on the line, you've gone down 2-0, and ironically enough, he had that speech, and sure, it could come off a little whiny at times, but I mean, I like that intensity, right? That's a guy who is desperate to win, a guy who knows he's been doubted by outside sources, much like people are doubting the Vancouver Canucks. So you take that doubt, you bottle it up, and you use it as motivation. And I think Connor McDavid did that when he yelled at his team after game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Ironically, that didn't lead to anything in game 3. They lost game 3, and arguably that lost in the series despite them coming back in game 7. But no, I like that intensity, man. I'm excited to see the documentary, of course. So F. Connor McDavid. I'm most excited to see Quinn Hughes in the doc as well in episode 4, apparently.
Dude, Quinn Hughes is going to be the most boring player in this docuseries, and that's okay. We're going to love it. But I'm telling you, the guy reads $30 a year, and he's like super serious. Like, he's the most serious captain in the hockey, for real, dude.
There was an episode. So there's 6 episodes, right? There's an episode by episode review by a national writer, and he basically said the Quinn Hughes episode was the most boring one.
I told you, bro. Quinn Hughes only cares about hockey, man. He only cares about hockey. He doesn't care about the cameras or nothing. This guy's so serious. Anyways, hit the like button for Quinn Hughes, man. Straight up, man. It's going to be a good season. Thanks for sticking around with us all off season. It's been a fun ride, and that's it. You know, after the weekend, it all gets really real. And I know that Trevor and I like to allude to the fact that it's real every day here on Locked On Canucks, but I'm not going to say we're lying to you because, you know, we're our authentic selves here, but it's different. It's different in the offseason, man. And I'm just so excited to see real hockey again. Straight up. Peace out. Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs, Beggsy, do the official sign up. I got to get out of here.
All right. Shout out to the everydayers, occasional listeners, first-time listeners, new subscribers, and those of you who join us on the live show on YouTube. Whenever you're listening, wherever you're listening, we appreciate the hell out of you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks. One more preseason game tonight, and then it's for real, baby. We got you again, Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day. At least 3 more episodes from us until the puck drops on the regular season next Wednesday. We got you covered for everything leading up to that and past that. But for now, we got to get out of here. I'm Trevor Beggs. That guy's Kyle Bound. And you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.
Peace.